Hi, this is Chris Carter. I'd like to introduce you to the color scheme game. The color scheme game is a game that I invented for myself to learn how to use color. Now, this was after a period of 2 or 3 years when I went back to making color charts and color wheels to really understand how to mix color intentionally to get what I wanted. And once I learned that, and this is after I've been painting for 30 years, I took advantage of 2008 being a terrible downturn in the economy, and I stopped doing exhibitions and teaching workshops for 3 years. During that time, I decided that I would master the skills of color. I'd like to think that I've mastered the basics of color, but color now, instead of being a mystery to me, because it was really the weakest tool that I had in my art toolbox, instead of being a mystery, now it's just mysterious and exciting, and I enjoy not only the color that I use to paint and mixing those colors, but I enjoy seeing color in nature, color in the world, color in fabrics, so much more than I ever did before. My strength was line and shapes and values, composition, drawing techniques. When it came to color, I was pretty clueless, and I faked it for a long, long time. I want to share with you how I made it fun for myself and how I took my knowledge of color that I learned after going back to the science of light, and I began to apply it in my paintings, because it's one thing to know something, to understand how pigments mix, how colors mix, and it's a totally different thing when you're out in the field or in your studio and you're actually putting it to use and making color choices. Because I grew up in a family that played games all the time, and often that's how my father would teach me things, by inventing a game for me, and I find that that's how I learn the best. So I thought, all right, now I understand how to mix colors, but what colors do I want to mix? How do I decide that? And the whole idea of color schemes was kind of out of my realm of understanding. I thought maybe it was confining. I just didn't know. Because I didn't understand color, I didn't really understand color schemes. So I created a game called the Color Scheme Game. And in this game, there are 12 basic colors, pure saturated colors, the primary colors, the secondary colors, and the ones in between. And there are 12 templates that correspond to 12 different color schemes. So the idea is that you throw a die. This is a 12-sided die, or you can use 2 regular cube dies. And the first throw will indicate which color on the color wheel has to be included in your color scheme. If you want to make it a little bit more challenging, then you would use that color as your dominant color, but that's for the more advanced players. And then you would throw the die again to determine which one of the color scheme templates you're going to use. Then you put that template on the top. I use a tack and a cork. Then you spin it around to make sure that the color that you first threw the die for, let's say it's yellow. So you would have to make sure that yellow was showing through one of the openings. And you have to use those colors, undiluted. We're not dealing with values. You're really holding to using colors. And then the little trick here is that you're never going to mix the same colors that are on the color wheel that comes in the PDF file, because you may be using different pigments. I might be using cadmium yellow medium. You might be using cadmium lemon. Or you might be using yellow ochre for your yellow. Okay, so it's going to be different every time. And that's what you do. For 1 week, you play with one set of 3 primaries. And then, if you wanted to, you could swap that out and then swap out an alizarin crimson red for a cadmium red and see what happens. And then you really, really reinforce what you know about color and mixing color. And you never have to memorize formulas again. You don't have to memorize the names of pigments again. You don't have to have 5 dozen tubes of paint. You need 6. And maybe you want to throw in a few extras like cobalt turquoise, which you can't mix, or cobalt violet, which you can't mix. But only those few that you can't mix. Or maybe a burnt sienna because you don't want to use your expensive pigments to mix an earth color. So you might get that as a convenience color, but you would never bring that with you if you were going hiking and wanted to paint because you don't want to carry any extra weight. I just carry a little tiny, tiny tin with a few pigments in, and I can mix anything I want. So, except cobalt turquoise and cobalt violet. So I invite you to take a look at the color scheme game, whether you're a full-time artist, whether that's professional or amateur. Those delineations don't mean very much to me. Or if you've never painted before, how great would it be to learn from the very beginning how color works, instead of being lost in the muck of it and the mystery of it, and to be washing a lot of paint off your paper, scraping it off your canvas. I just invite you to take a look, and I hope to see you in class, online, for the color scheme game. Thanks a lot for giving me time. Have a great day.